On this Earth Day, we look at how one corner of the planet was contaminated with dangerous chemicals. Nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project in the 1940s wound up in a waterway that snakes through St. Louis. In tonight's Eye on America, Skylar Henry talks with a resident who believes years later that waste gave her loved ones cancer.
When did you start to notice people starting to get sick?
It was a slow, insidious process.
When Linda Maurice and her family first moved to St. Louis in 1957, they had no idea they had anything to fear.
I first knew there was some problem when my mother died. Her brother, who was a physician, took me aside and said, "Linda, I don't believe St. Louis is a very healthy place to live. Everyone on the street has a tumor."
The neighborhood was bordered by Coldwater Creek, a 19-mile tributary of the Missouri River. It wound through their backyards, near baseball fields, schools, and cemeteries, and past lots where leaking barrels and open-air dumps of nuclear waste leached into its waters.
It was shocking that this creek was likely making people sick.
Starting in 1942, roughly 1 ton of pure uranium was produced per day in downtown St. Louis. It was then shipped to labs across the country for the top-secret Manhattan Project, which created the first nuclear bomb. The leftover waste was dumped around the city.
That material was in 82 different spots throughout St. Louis County. Spilled, children played in it. It seemed to me that there wasn't an attempt to absolutely get to the bottom of it.
In Maurice's family alone, her mother, father, and brother died of cancer, leaving her to think differently about her childhood.
All that time, all those fun things were happening, but that whole time, we and the rest of the community were being exposed to some pretty dangerous stuff.
Now, her husband, who also lived in the area, is fighting cancer.
Clearly, there's something unusual about those cases.
He's being treated by urologic oncologist Dr. Gautam Agarwal. For the last several years, Dr. Agarwal has been tracking which of his patients lived near Coldwater Creek.
At what point did you say, oh, no, wait, we need to start keeping tabs of this?
I was seeing patients who were young, who had developed pretty significant cancers from areas that there's been some contamination with nuclear waste.
While radiation is known to cause cancer, experts say they can't pin down the specific cause of the disease in a given patient. But a 2019 study from the Department of Health and Human Services found that people who lived and played near Coldwater Creek from the 1960s to 1990s could have increased the risk of developing lung cancer, bone cancer, or leukemia.
The people there deserve for us to look at this much closer than we have.
People like Kristen Camuso, who grew up near Coldwater Creek.
I had to have a total hysterectomy. I've been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. They found a new tumor on my remaining adrenal gland. I promised myself that I was going to get better and do something about it.
It's a promise she's keeping. As we'll explain tomorrow, Kristen Camuso is determined neither to forget history nor have the people here relive it. For Eye on America, I'm Skylar Henry in St. Louis.
The story began with the development of the first nuclear bomb in the 1940s. Waste from that project became a ticking time bomb in the St. Louis area. Well, now one woman is on a mission to see that it's cleaned up. Here again is Skylar Henry.
Just 15 miles away from St. Louis's Gateway Arch, nuclear waste was stored for decades.
It was all top secret.
Linda Maurice lived near Coldwater Creek for 18 years. The waterway ran right by the storage site.
There was a deposit site where the processes and wastes of the Manhattan Project had been stored, that is to say, dumped in the open or put in barrels that rusted.
Eventually, Linda's mother, father, and brother would all die of lymphoma.
I think there are people to this day who don't know the story.
It wasn't until 1989, 43 years after the waste was first dumped, that the Environmental Protection Agency classified the area as hazardous. They said it was dangerously contaminated and ordered a government cleanup. But by that time, more than 60,000 people lived within just 1 mile of the creek, including Kristen Camuso.
I had to have a total hysterectomy. I've been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. They found a new tumor on my remaining adrenal gland.
Camuso is the policy director for the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. She's been pushing for the remaining waste to be removed for more than 12 years.
I was quite literally laying in my hospital bed, and I promised myself that I was going to get better and do something about it.
The Army Corps of Engineers has been in charge of the cleanup since 1997. An early project manager estimated it would take at least 8 years to finish. But now their best estimate is 2038.
There is a low-level radioactive material there, and we're going to remove it. It doesn't matter it's low or high, we're going to remove it.
Colonel Andy Paneer leads the St. Louis site.
It's small pockets at random locations along the creek that had been moved and deposited over time.
But the Corps' own maps show some of those pockets of waste are near schools, cemeteries, and under people's homes.
St. Louisans are being chronically exposed to this every day of their lives.
Last year, Camuso and the Washington University Environmental Law Clinic analyzed the Corps' cleanup plans. Not only are they concerned about the slow pace, they say the Corps is leaving behind nearly 3 times more radioactive isotopes than the Department of Energy said is safe.
What they're finding is mostly thorium-230, and that is an alpha emitter.
What does that mean?
So basically it becomes dangerous when you inhale or ingest it, and once it's in your body, it will continue to fire for the rest of your life.
The Corps told us their cleanup plans are safe, but the Environmental Protection Agency wasn't convinced. CBS News found that in 2020, EPA scientists asked the Corps for specific data on the contamination, but the Corps did not respond to those requests.
Everybody has been touched by this legacy, and I feel it's a responsibility of mine. Now that I know this information, I can't just sit on it.
The Corps has promised an update on the contamination in 4 months, when it's set to publish its latest 5-year review. But while the people here wait for the threat to be dealt with, the creek continues to flow. For Eye on America, I'm Skyler Henry in St. Louis.